We have lots of news to cover today that we did not get to throughout the NHL trade deadline yesterday. It was also a busy news cycle when it comes to the NHL Waiver Wire. We had several signings, and there was a few deals that came close, but not quite, including a huge blockbuster that almost happened regarding Linus Ullmark and the Boston Bruins. We'll discuss the possibilities of what almost happened and the other news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some other news to talk about here today. Of course, the NHL trade deadline, get everybody's attention focused on the trades at hand, which is certainly understandable. But there was lots of other news that was certainly noteworthy as well that I want to cover today. And there was a couple of trades that were really close to happening but did not. And we'll discuss those as well. First up, from the NHL Waiver Wire, there were several players on waivers from the day before. 3 players ended up getting claimed yesterday. The Ottawa Senators claimed forward Boris Katchouk from the Chicago Blackhawks. So obviously, after moving Tarasenko, they had a hole in the forward group. They have some young players they could bring up, but an opportunity to kind of test the waters with Katchouk here to see if there might be a fit longer term. I know some people were making jokes already saying that they needed to claim him, just get Tkachuk and Katchouk on the same line, just purely for the entertainment purposes. But either way, Boris Katchouk's a member of the Ottawa Senators. He does come, I believe he signed for an extra year as well, so they can kind of make a longer term decision on him. Maybe easy to move if necessary, because they do have some injuries as well. Not only Tarasenko out, McEwen's hurt, Kelly was just suspended as well, which we'll get to momentarily as well. The Florida Panthers claimed defenseman Toby Bjornfoot. He was on waivers from the Vegas Golden Knights. Of course, they had picked him up earlier from the Kings, so he moves over now to the Florida Panthers. And the Anaheim Ducks claimed defenseman William Lagesson, who was on waivers from the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think the Leafs actually liked Lagesson. They were just trying to make some room after making some I guess what they were feeling were upgrades, including the Joel Edmondson acquisition on the back end there. So Lagesson becomes a victim of the numbers game and gets put on waivers, and the Ducks certainly could use another defenseman, so they picked him up. So it makes sense, but we saw that stuff happen. A few signings as well, including 2 in Nashville and 1 in Calgary. I know some people were saying Barry Trotz should be notified that it's not signing frenzy here, it's trade frenzy, but he was busy in a number of fashions yesterday, including signing defenseman Dante Fabro. Fabro gets a 1-year extension at $2.5 million. He was a player that I know some thought maybe could be moved. It's been under the rumor mill for a while now. Same with Tyson Barrie. Tyson Barrie, Nashville, also another defenseman that didn't get moved, but the Predators didn't really want to subtract. They did do some subtractions, but also made some additions. So overall, I think they feel like they're a better team. But Fabro gets an extension for 1 year, and Mark Jankowski in the forward group also gets a 2-year extension, league minimum $775,000. So a couple of signings there. And the Calgary Flames signed forward Kevin Rooney. He gets a 1-year extension at $1.3 million. As I mentioned, we also saw yesterday in the Senators-Kings game, Parker Kelly was suspended as well for an illegal check to the head against Kings defenseman Andreas Englund, who also subsequently is a former Senator. Been some time now since he's left the organization, but former Senator, that's where he started his career. He gets a 2-game suspension for that illegal check to the head, which when you watch the replay, certainly something I think that was avoidable, you could say. Not a great decision on his part. Kelly does play a very aggressive physical game. Generally doesn't cross the line, but he did in this particular case. So I think the 2-game ban is justified for sure. I believe that's his first suspension in the NHL, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't get a chance to watch the NHL.com video from player safety on that one, but I believe it was. The Red Wings have recalled Jonathan Berggren as well. He was another player that was in the rumor mill a lot recently, and certainly somebody that was rumored to be moved but wasn't, so he's going to get another chance here to play in the NHL. We'll see. The Penguins also recalled John Gruden as well, and a signing that we expected to see but didn't was Phil Kessel with the Vancouver Canucks. He had been working out with the team in Abbotsford for 2 weeks or more, 3 weeks, and doesn't end up getting signed. Now, the belief was from reporters that essentially they needed to make some space for him and weren't able to do so. I mean, they were certainly busy and made some other moves here, but to get Kessel under contract was just not as easy as it sounded, I guess. Jim Rutherford, the president of the Canucks, made comments saying that they really respect Phil, great player, great person, lots of great experience, and they were very interested. But he didn't, I know reporters were saying it was really just a cap thing. But at the end of the day, with his remarks, I'm not 100% sure that it was strictly cap. I know it played a big role in it. But he also mentioned just kind of the fit their style of play and where the team is heading to. So you got to wonder if it's, unsure about getting the right role for him. I mean, he could have been on the roster, I guess, even doesn't have to be a regular player in the lineup every night. He's kind of like an insurance piece, somebody who can come in and produce for you if need be. But unfortunately for Phil, after all that hard work and trying to make a comeback, it falls short. Speaking of players making comebacks, we saw that from Max Pacioretty this year. Certainly after a long couple of years of dealing with Achilles injuries, he's finally been able to stay healthy here for the last stretch. And with Washington, it took him a while to get going, to get kind of on the board, and hasn't been the most productive. But there was a fair bit of interest given his resume and experience and what he's done in the past. Max Pacioretty was signed this year by the Capitals, like some of these other veterans, on one-year deals and given a no-trade clause. So he had full control if he was going to go anywheres. And there was reportedly multiple offers on the table to acquire Pacioretty, and he vetoed all of them. I think at the end of the day, he's just comfortable and has moved around a lot in the last few years with his family. Probably just decided that he doesn't want to do that just this year. So rather than chase a cup, he's going to stay in Cap's organization and finish out the season. Right now, it's trending like they're not likely going to make the playoffs. You never know. They're not completely out of it either, but not looking good. But the teams reportedly that were in the mix include the Rangers, the Bruins. There were some that thought maybe like the Avs and the Kings too. I mean, we don't know 100%, but I know insider Frank Zervalli of DailyFaceoff.com did confirm that he said that Pacioretty vetoed multiple deals. But yeah, so he's staying put. But there was certainly lots of interest, no doubt there. Another player generating a lot of buzz leading up to the deadline, and even yesterday as well, was Bruins goalie Linus Ullmark. And of course, we know that the Bruins have two very capable goaltenders and arguably the best tandem in the NHL between Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman. Now, of course, Swayman, I think it's tough to say who's been the better goalie. I think a lot of people think Swayman's been the better goalie this year. We'll see come playoff time who they go to first for game one. That'll be a telling story. Of course, Ullmark, Vezina Trophy winner. It's been phenomenal for the Bruins since signing there as a free agent. And it's kind of getting to a point that the Bruins team, I know there's a lot of people kind of wondering the real identity of the team. They've certainly had their struggles on the stretch. They obviously made some additions here at the deadline as well, but not to the extent and that some people thought. And they get value and they get another top player to come back to that team. They need to move out something of value, and Ullmark has tons of value. There's no doubt about that. But he also has a full no-trade clause, and there's speculation that Ullmark also vetoed at least one deal, that the deal was pretty much agreed to, but Ullmark would not agree to waive his no-trade clause. It's believed to be a team in the Western Conference. There's multiple reports out there with a difference of opinions on which team it was. There was one, a few people swear it was the LA Kings, and there's some that are pretty convinced it was the Colorado Avalanche. So ultimately, for Ullmark, he has a modified no trade, has 16 teams that he can block. It's believed from insiders that out of the 16 teams, at least 14 of them are in the West. Now, I don't know who the Eastern teams would be, but ultimately, the reasons and the explanation given by NHL insiders was that Ullmark declined to waive due to geographical reasons. So clearly just areas he doesn't want to go to, not interested in going to, etc. So we know there's interest from some Eastern teams too that are, certainly looking for goaltending help. It'd be curious to see if the Bruins kind of pursue this again in the offseason. We know obviously that Swayman needs a new contract, and there's been some talk. I know Elliot Friedman has said that the Bruins and Swayman have had discussions, but at this point it doesn't sound like they're super close on term or money. But it's going to become, with that next contract, even more challenging to keep the two from a cap perspective. And then when you throw in the idea that they certainly look like they could use upgrades in other areas, and I guess this playoff run will be very telling in that story too, right? I mean, obviously if the Bruins go really far and either win a cup or come close, then they're going to be pretty confident that they have a lot of the right pieces in place to be successful there. But if they fall short and have a short-lived playoff appearance this season, then I think it's going to be fair to say that they're going to be looking to make more significant changes in the offseason. I mean, they lost some big-time players in Krejci and Bergeron, and, looking at the roster on paper, to be honest, it really is difficult for some fans, myself included, to understand just how good they are. Because when you watch them play, you see them, but they've also had their struggles on the stretch. I've heard some people say they're frauds, or they're this, they're that. Well, we'll see when we get to the playoffs. This is a team that just always seems to find a way to win. And they have that drive, that determination, and that grit, and it's just the Bruin way of finding it. Do they always get it done? No. Ultimately, last year was their greatest regular season ever, and they fell short in the first round in a 7-game series to Florida. So clearly this year will probably determine who they play. It looks like they could have a Bruins-Leafs rematch, which would be fun to watch again after a few years of not having it. So we'll see where that goes. But ultimately, Linus Ullmark called his shot here and decided to remain a Bruin, which isn't shocking. But there are teams in the Eastern Conference that we know are looking for goaltending help and are reported to have interest in this player. Doesn't mean they're going to have a trade agreed to with the Bruins, and it doesn't mean Ullmark won't try to block it, because we don't know which Eastern teams for sure is on his list. But we know the Devils made some goaltending moves, getting Kakinen and Jake Allen. Kakinen's a pending UFA. They're still believed to be looking for more of a bona fide starter, or somebody to work with Jake in a tandem. We'll see if Kakinen's that guy or not. So it's quite possible when we get to the offseason that they still may pursue Markstrom. It's believed Markstrom seems to be their guy. So we'll see. A Markstrom-Allen tandem in New Jersey's not out of the realm of possibility for next year. And we know Ottawa's looking for goaltending help. I don't know if that would be something that would work out. I don't know what the Sens would be willing to give up to get a guy like Ullmark, but he could be a fit there. And they're not the only teams. I mean, goaltending in Toronto's questionable. If Joseph Woll runs with things in the playoffs and does well, then he'll be the starter next year, and they'll probably be looking for more of a backup, whether that's Samsonov or somebody else. We'll have to wait to be seen. Obviously teams like Florida, Tampa, they're pretty secure. The Islanders, Rangers, Carolina might be a question mark for goaltending next year as well. We don't know how everything's going to go there. But again, they have enough pieces in place that they probably get that figured out. If Kochetkov, Anderson, I'm not sure who all returns to the team next year. Philly's another team that you think they probably have the pieces internally. So there's really 2 or 3 teams in the East that would really be the teams most likely pushing. So we'll see. And like I said, we don't know 100% who's on Ullmark's no list. But ultimately, the trades were there, and it sounded like it was close enough that the Bruins were willing to do it if he was going to waive, and he would not. At least that's what reports indicate, and I've seen some reports saying that yesterday when he was leaving the rink, that he just looked really agitated and annoyed. So, yeah, I guess if you kind of get the feeling that your team's trying to move you and you're trying to do what you can to use your contract to stay, I can understand why that would be annoying. I mean, they got a good thing going there, but we'll see. This could be the last playoff run for the Bruins with their luxury of having 2 really solid goaltenders. But time will tell. But Ullmark and Pacioretty almost moved yesterday, but it did not happen because of their power in their contract. So let me know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. I'll do my best to keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.